guys! So I am so excited because I get to read a bunch of books to you guys that I grew up when I was your age getting read to me. This book is called Little Mouse on the Prairie, and I don't know if you guys will be able to see or not if my camera person turns around, but we're actually out on the prairie. I know a lot of times I talk to you guys about where I grew up and that I grew up in the grasslands when we study biomes around the prairie. I wonder what it would look like if we turned around out this big window and see if we can see the prairie. It's a really, really beautiful place that I was very, very lucky to grow up in. And this is what it looks like. Very, very beautiful place. And this story is also set on the prairie. Little Mouse on the Prairie. Written by Stephen Cosgrove and illustrated by Robin James. In a land of dewdrops and daydreams, near absolutely nothing at all, lived a whole bunch of mice. Now these mice weren't your average run-of-the-mill house mice. They were more like meadow mice that you might mingle with on a medium morning in May or maybe March. We heard lots of mms on that page. Did you guys hear lots of mms? From dawn to dusk, through spring and early summer, they would skitter and scurry across the prairie without a single care in the world. They would race about and then suddenly leap high into the air to touch the wings of a golden butterfly, or sometimes they would do nothing at all except to sniff the flowers. All of the mice on the prairie were like this, except for one small mouse called Tweezle-Dee. While all the other mice were playing their silly games, Tweezle-Dee, or as the other mice called her, Tweez, would work industriously, doing all sorts of tedious chores. As soon as she woke up in the morning, right after eating her breakfast and brushing her teeth, she would begin a long day of hard work. She would dash this way and that, collecting twigs, branches, and brambles with which to build her new winter home. Tweez worked for months and months as the other mice played in the meadow. If she wasn't working on her house, she would be off and about collecting nuts and berries and storing them away for the winter. She never stopped to play, but was always on the go, searching for this or that, or working, and working. The only thing she never did was smile or laugh. Tweez thought that smiling and laughing was a waste of time, and she barely had enough time to do her chores as it was. The other mice of the meadow would stop their play just to watch Tweez work. They would laugh till they could laugh no more, watching her dash from place to place, searching for the perfect leaf or a just-so twig. Sometimes it was great fun for the other mice to see if they could get Tweez to smile. As she would race by, they would jump in front of her, making faces that should have made a statue smile. And she would always just shrug her shoulders, and she would say, "Silly mouse, I have no time to smile, for winter is coming and I have work to do." And then she would move quickly on her grumbly way. One day the mice ran out of fun things to do, and they sat in the meadow and they thought, hoping to find some new game to play. "I know what we can do," said one of the mice brightly. "Let's play a joke on that old grouch mouse, Tweezle-Dee." He hurriedly whispered his plans to the other mice. They all giggled in delight and set off in a million directions to gather what they needed for their wonderful joke. From every flower in the meadow, They picked all of the pollen that their little arms could hold, and then they carefully placed the pollen high in the branches of a tree that spread over the path that they took every day to and from the meadow. When everything was in its place, the mice hid at the base of the tree, giggling as they waited for Tweezledee. Sure enough, not a moment or two later, Tweez came trudging along the trail, and one of the mice, as usual, jumped in front of her and made a ridiculously funny face. "Out of my way, silly mouse," she said. "I have work to do, for winter is on its way." "No, winter has already come," said the little mouse as he tried to hide a smile. Tweez looked about the meadow and said solemnly, "No, it hasn't. Look around, mouse. There is no snow." With that, the other mice shook the tree, causing the pollen to fall on top of poor Tweezledee like snowfall in deep December. And they all laughed and laughed, but she just glared and she said, "Mark my words, winter is coming, and when it does, you silly mice won't be laughing so hard." "Old grouch," they chanted as she moved quickly on her way. "She doesn't know what she's talking about." And then they began rolling and playing in the pollen. Sure enough, just as she had predicted, winter did come to the meadow, and in a swoosh of clouds, wind, and snow, the whole meadow was crystal white and quite still. At first, the mice found the snow to be just another game, but as the day wore on, it became colder and colder. "What are we to do?" cried the mice through chattering teeth. "Tweez was right. We should have worked to prepare for winter, and now we shall surely freeze." And they all huddled together, and one of them said, "Oh, we must go to Tweez. Maybe she can help." All of the meadow mice made their way through the falling snow to Tweez's house on the far side of the meadow. They gathered about and softly tapped on the door. "Who is it?" came the reply. "It's the mice of the meadow," they answered. And the door opened slowly, and there stood Tweez, all warm and cozy in a sweater that she had knitted the summer before. And behind her the other mice could see a warm and crackling fire made of twigs that she had gathered in the fall. "What do you want?" growled Tweez. "Have you come to play another silly joke on me?" "No," said one of the mice. "We came to say that we're sorry for all of the things that we did, and that you were right. Winter was coming, and we should have prepared ourselves as you did." And then the other mice all cried, "Oh, please, please, Tweez, can't we stay with you? If you refuse, we shall surely freeze." Tweez shrugged her shoulders and said, "You should have thought of that before." And with that, she closed the door. Tweez busied herself, stoking the fire and cleaning the house. But you know what? Never in her life had she ever smiled, nor had she ever been happy. In fact, Tweez was very, very lonely. She tried to keep busy, but day after day all she could think about were those poor, freezing mice somewhere out in the snow-covered meadow. And finally she could stand it no more, and after putting on her winter coat and her mittens, she set out to find the mice. For you see, Tweez had a plan, a very happy plan. After searching for many hours, she finally found them huddled in a snowbank beneath a scraggly bush. With a frozen tear in her eye, she told them her plan. "Fellow mice," she began, "through the summer I worked as you played, preparing for the winter. Many times I wanted to join you, but I didn't know how. If you will teach me how to have fun, I will teach you how to spin and weave, and I will share my home with you." The mice quickly agreed, and they all set off for the warmth of Tweez's home. Oh, and what a merry time they had. Tweez taught them to weave and sew, and they taught her to laugh and to sing. And once or twice, for no reason at all, Tweezledee would smile, a happy smile. So, when you are hard at work or working hard at play, remember Tweezle's laughter on that crystal winter's day. All right, friends, that was a really nice story. I think my favorite part of the story was that the mice learned from each other. Just like the last book we read, everybody has something very special about themselves that they're very good at. And it was really special that Tweez knew how to get ready for the winter, and the other mice knew how to have fun and laugh and play, and they were able to share each other's strengths and things that they were good at with each other to make their lives better. What a nice story. Thanks, friends.